Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing on our pandemic projects. Fortunately, the pandemic has lasted far, far too long. And a special shout out to everybody who's a first responder, who's got a role in this, emergency workers, frontline workers, and so on. We do appreciate your perseverance and your willingness and desire to keep us all safe and sound. We're going to try and keep everybody entertained during this, and that's why I've been doing as many of these videos as I have. And today is going to be kind of a special one. We're coming up on the holiday weekend here. I got my grandson coming in. We thought we would do a little pond fishing. He's 10 years old, and we thought we'd do a little pond fishing, and we're going to do that. I'm going to get him a reel set up here. This is a Mitchell. It's an Avocet II. It's a 500 small spool capacity for a pond. Can't tell you where I got this other than I haven't used it, and it seems like a very smooth reel. So I'm just going to make sure I tune it up so that we don't have a disaster out there like the reel binding and everything. This is it's a 4-ball bearing reel, so for a pond reel this is wonderful. And I'm going to find a little 6-foot rod to put that on for him, and I think at the end of the day I'm going to tell him to take it home with him, and you know, wait for another day that we can all go out and enjoy fishing. So I want to service this reel. I want to show you what's inside this reel, show you how to tune it up if you have one of these, and if you're thinking about buying one of these, then you'll see how this reel is made and if it stands up. The first thing we're going to do is kind of take the external parts off. I'm going to start by taking the spool off. And to do that, you just remove the drag tension knob. Then we can pull up on the spool. We'll take the spool apart in a moment and we'll just see what kind of drag washers are in there. There's a little ratchet and a spool shim. Let's go take those off. There's a little tie down in terms of the little button here. So let's go and do that. And then we can take this spool hold down off. I'm not quite sure what that is. 9, 10, 8, 9, 10. Looks like a 10 millimeter. Okay, so here's a good indication. You need to do this with a lot of reels. If your normal inclination is to reverse, go counterclockwise to take a nut off and it's not moving, try it the other way, because a lot of fishing reels have that reverse threaded nut, and this one does. So don't go wrenching away thinking that it can only go the one way and break something. If you're feeling resistance, try it the other way first before you go crazy. Alright, the nut is off. You can take the rotor off next. Just walk it up the pinion gear there. There we go. So we have a ball bearing up top here. We have a reverse gear. We have an override on it, which is kind of neat for an anti-reverse. You don't get that on all of these. And I took the top off first because I wasn't sure if this case could come out without removing the rotor, and indeed it can't. Many of you can see there's a small screw here that's at the top of the case, so you can't take that side plate off unless you do what we just did there with removing the rotor. Alright, we're going to take the case off then. You'll notice I'm wearing a latex glove. I like to keep dirt and junk and grease and grime off my hands if I can. I work on a lot of reels over the course of the day. Some folks comment and say, geez, that reel doesn't have any grease in it, what are you wearing that for? Well, that one doesn't, but the one before and the one after may, so I never like to take too many chances. And you can see there's some grease there. That's a through screw, which means you had to remove that before you can remove the handle. The handle goes through the main gear. And you're noticing all these pieces and parts are making it into a parts tray. That parts tray is simply the bottom of a milk jug, but it keeps all of my parts in one place just where I need them. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Those screws have a through slot on them. Somebody was telling me there's a name for it. I think it's Japanese NIS or something. I haven't quite figured it out, but it must be a machine tool. But at any rate, I haven't run out and got them, but we'll see. I also got a comment today. I think it was Malcolm. I'm not sure what, but he showed me a tool on Napa, an auto tool for the removal of C-clips, and he made my day. I'm going to run out and get that tool because it supposedly can hold everything together and make it easy for you to safely remove a C-clip without breaking fingernails. So he saw me struggling on that C-line reel that we did and suggested I try these, and I am going to run right out and get that. They're a little pricey, but seems like every day now I'm getting a reel that's got a C-clip in it, and worth the investment to me. There's two on the sides, there's one below. These three are the same. I'm putting them in my parts tray and I'm checking. I want to make sure that the length of those screws are all the same. And I know just by looking at it that the one up top, the one I have not removed yet, is going to be different because it's got a smaller head. Let's see if we can get this with the... Sometimes you can get these working with the Phillips head and it's a little easier. Okay, we got one more here. The three in the tray are all the same. This one's going to be different. I already know that. I'll take that last one off. It's moving with my Phillips head. Don't be aggressive with these things. You can strip these threads pretty quickly. Alright, and that's the last one, and we're going to make a note that the last one has a smaller head, even though it looks like the size of the screw is the same. That should enable us now to remove the side plate, which it does. Once we get the side plate removed, we should be able to come down and remove the axle shaft. In order to do that, we're going to have to back the axle shaft all the way down so you have access to that. Sometimes these main gears come out here, sometimes they don't. In this case they do. And I think what we have here, we probably have a new reel that hasn't been fished much. I probably got it from a distributor somewhere along the line. I'm going to guess that this thing sat in a warehouse for a long time, probably laid down just this way because all the grease kind of puddled onto the main gear here. It's all old grease. It's not doing anything good in terms of lubrication, so we're going to take all that stuff out of there. Manufacturers tend to overload their reels with grease. They don't want to take a reel back that broke because of insufficient grease. So when they're coming out of the plants, they're fully loaded. And unfortunately, in the warehouse and distribution business, in reels like this one, which was made in China, is coming overseas on a boat. It's sitting in a particular position for quite some time, and a lot of times that grease just kind of leaks out, or it finds that gravity does its job and it finds its lowest point and just kind of settles there. So a lot of folks say to me, why did you take that reel apart? It was new. Well, sometimes it's just because of that the reel's been sitting for some time, and you just want to make sure that you've got it all back together and doesn't fail on you before you start. Okay, we're going to try and remove the axle shaft now. You do that by pulling up. And this one's a little stuck. So what I like to do when they're stuck, I like to find my button, put that adjuster knob on there, and that kind of acts as a little kind of a lever to pull it out like we just did there. So I don't have slow motion, but that's what I did. I just grabbed it and just pulled. Sometimes these axle shafts are slippery or whatever, and they're hard to grip. So if you get in that moment there where you're kind of stuck like that, go ahead and do it that way. All right, let's grab our little pin, get this out. You can see all the old grease kind of puddled there, and that's what we're doing right now. We're just cleaning this reel up. But there's no evidence that this reel's been out fishing. It's just looks like all the original grease has just been kind of flooding there. I have that little set screw for this was laying on the bench, and we'll just go ahead and grab the crosswind block. I'm looking for pliers to do that. I'm going to just grab the stud. There you go. We have a little screw holding that crosswind block in, so I want to take that out. I want to get that crosswind block off because I want to get to the dirt that's underneath it. Again, we're kind of doing a cleaning here, so you want to get into that channel, and I'm going to use a Q-tip to do that. And again, there's no dirt from fishing in here, that's for sure. So my guess is I just, like I said, I've got a new reel here, and it's just a good thing to service. You don't need to take this off during a general service. You can take this off if you like. Since this hasn't been fished, there's no reason I'm going to go ahead and do that. But to do that, you would pull these 3 screws, and you'll have a bearing, an anti-reverse clutch, and a bearing below. I'm going to start with the bearing below. I'm going to use fishing reel oil. In this case, it's Reel X, which is a synthetic oil. I'm going to flood that bearing, and I'm just going to roll it around so that the oil gets in there. Then I'm going to do the same thing up top, turning the reel this way, putting the oil in the top bearing, and just flooding it that way. And I'm going to grab the fishing reel grease. In this case, I'm going to use Penn Precision reel grease. It doesn't matter what manufacturer's reel grease you use. There's plenty of them available out there on Amazon and eBay and fishing marts. Doesn't matter. Some people have a preference for the Quantum greases or the Penn greases, the Abu greases. My advice to you is just make sure it's a fishing reel grease. That is just checking the back, checking the teeth here, making sure that we're all clean. This is the crosswind block. I'm going to get some grease onto that. We put grease on the pinion gear already. This is another reason why this glove works, like grease would have been on my hands. I'm going to go set that back on over the stud. And then once it's over the stud, I've got to put that screw back in. I think I got to take the screw out to put the screw in. Let's get that loaded properly. And you want to bring that stud down. It makes it easier for you to put the axle shaft on. And of course we were able to get that main gear out without the axle shaft being removed first. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have to pull that axle shaft in order to get the main gear out. But this one had the clearance behind it, so that's okay. So we saw kind of how this was made up. We got another bearing here. I'm going to flood that bearing. I'm just going to roll it around, make sure it gets some juice in on that. Grab the back end of this one then, and while I'm letting that thing soak in, we can go put this axle shaft back in. I'm going to take the crosswind block, and this is a pretty standard setup for a lot of fishing reels, so don't be afraid to open one up if you don't know too much about them. There's a couple of setups, but this is fairly standard. And I have no clue what this pricing is. I'm going to guess with 4-ball bearings, probably a little bit more than the average department store reel or sporting goods store reel, but it's a Mitchell. Mitchell is part of the Pure Fishing Empire conglomerate. It's got Abu and Penn and Shakespeare and a whole bunch of brands in there. They're all good brands. They're all fairly dependable. We've done some of the older Mitchells, and folks have commented about the quality of the newer ones that we've also done here. We've done a Phaser, we've done an Epic, we've done the new 300. You know, the industry's changed. You're not going to be buying a Mitchell 300 from the 1960s when you buy a Mitchell. But then again, nobody's making a reel like that today, so I don't know why your expectations would be that that's what you're going to buy. But they're supported by Pure Fishing, and if something fails during the warranty, you can certainly get it replaced or repaired. But don't know about service parts. Going to guess that they're probably not available. All right, grease on the teeth for the crosswind gear, grease on the pinion gear, and now we have grease on the main gear. Just going to go ahead and get that in place. Okay, just stop the video for a moment. We wiggled that main gear in there, and I just wanted to get ready. My hand was getting a little sweaty in this glove here, and I think I'm done with the dirt part, so I just removed that. Main gear is in. There's two shims on the main gear that kind of keep it from vibrating. There's the ball bearing, which we previously oiled. I'm going to sit that in the case. I grab that case, then we should be able to just set this right on. There we go, nice snap to that. While I took the glove off, I also pulled the screws out of my parts bin. There's one that has the small head. This one is going to belong up top. And then the others have the larger heads. They belong in the three on the side here. So overall, I'm impressed with the reel. It's got a lot going for it, and an ultralight reel. Again, I don't know the retail cost on this, but I would guess it's probably around $30. I don't know, maybe a little bit more. 4 ball bearings is pretty much a high end for an ultralight reel, and this is only a 50 size, so I'm guessing we'll put maybe 6-pound test on it, 4-6-pound test. It's probably only going to take maybe 60-80 yards, but again, we're just going in a pond. You don't need to go that far with it, and you don't want to go too heavy with that line. That pond is kind of known for its got some bluegills and a couple little perch. We may be able to get a bass. They're in there, but they've been pretty finicky, and it's getting pretty warm out right now. So pond's got a lot of lily pads and algae and some other things growing in it, kind of your standard northeast pond at this point. So we'll see how we do with that. But regardless, we'll set them up there, and I think with that setup, we could probably also go. We're near the New Jersey shore, so we can set it up for snapper blue fishing and light inshore fishing a little bit later on in the season when those fish become more plentiful. Just testing everything, making sure it rides fine, which it does. All 4 side plates or screws are in, so we can grab that rotor, put that rotor on there. You want to align the rotor once you get that on. There's a little cavity there, and you need to make sure that that hold fast there, that square piece, fits in the cavity. Remember, we took this off in a clockwise direction, so we're going to put it on in a counterclockwise direction. And you just have to be careful that you don't cross thread on this one, so take your time. It's a little unnatural after doing so many of these screws in a clockwise fashion that kind of a weird feeling to get it started counterclockwise. But if you take your time, you'll get that done. Manufacturers do this because of the way that the rotor spins, and it's spinning in a direction that would keep that nut tight. That's why they do that, but then they give you a little bit of assurance here. They give you a hold down screw just in case. So let's get that hold down screw in, and that'll prevent that nut from turning because the shoulder or the top of the screw there is actually rubbing up against that nut. All right, I'm going to put the handle on. Now he's a left-hander, so I don't know if he's going to want to crank with the right-hand side or not. Easy enough to adjust this and switch it over to the other side. If he wants to crank with his right hand and hold the pole with his left, that's certainly fine. Okay, grab that click ratchet. That goes on next on the top here, and there's a little shim for the spool. And then we only have one thing left. That's to check the spool. See what's in those drags and service those drags if they need to be. Again, this is a new reel that hasn't gone fishing, but as part of the service, you should always deal with the spool. Okay, there's a hex spring there. You saw it shoot out. We got lucky. Oh, we got felt washers in here, and these felt washers look like they have plenty of oil on them. So you want to oil a felt washer just to keep it flexible like that. Doesn't even look like it's going to be cleaned. It's all new. Next up was an eared washer. Looks like you have 2 and 2. The bottom acting is 1. Here's another felt washer. Here's another top metal washer. Put that spring right back in. That's how you service it. If those didn't have all the oil on it, you go back to your real oil and just make sure that you oiled them up well. But in this case, there's plenty of oil on those, so nothing needs to be done. You can just deal with that spring. Get that into the slot. Here's your spool on, drag adjuster, knob. Give it a spin. Go put some line on it. Go put it on the pole. I think I have a 6-foot ugly stick that needs a reel. I'll go put it on that, and then we're going to go fishing. Nice reel. Alright, so if you have one of these, you now know how to take it apart and service it. If you don't have one of these and you're thinking about getting one, go right ahead and do that. 4-ball bearings, nice smooth reel, ultralight by Mitchell, the Avocet II, and we're going fishing. So with that, I hope you have a great holiday weekend. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you would like to see more, please subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I try to answer all the questions. If you have a reel to repair and you're a little bit hesitant about doing it yourself, or you don't feel like you have the skills, or it's beyond your capability and you want that repaired, well then contact me through the information on the business card that's at the end of this video. So with that, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.